So we are live. There we go. Now I gotta
Perfect.
get the link. I'm excited to talk wide receivers. This class it's something.
It is, man. I mean, it's
It's
probably this is the deepest class I can remember in a little while now. So
There's a
definitely
lot
gonna
of
be definitely gonna be
lot of
fun to see.
lot of good wide receivers.
Oh yeah,
A
very
lot
very
of good
deep.
sleepers that can come out, and anybody could be good in this class.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. I think landing spot's gonna tell a lot because
Yeah,
there's so
for
many good
sure.
receivers. We're looking at guys that might be really good, second, third options
Yeah,
on really good teams. So we'll see.
yeah, it's gonna be fun. It'd be crazy tomorrow being doing it remotely too. That's gonna be
it's
something
gonna it's gonna
different.
be from 7 o'clock till like 11:30. It's gonna be so many technological errors. Like I'm
Like you
not.
said,
Oh my
it's gonna be the
god.
top watched sports show in the last few months.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I completely agree. Completely agree.
Now I gotta make a tweet.
Sounds good. I'll retweet you.
Sounds good.
Oh, you're at 999 followers. You're also at that 1,000 mark.
Oh, I got to 1,000 a couple days ago. Then I woke up. I was at 996.
That's hilarious.
Then I got to 1,001 yesterday. I make my Rob Gronkowski video reaction. I go down like 3 followers. I'm just like, whatever.
That's
I
so.
did that as a joke, and
That's
everyone.
so funny. It's funny because I never pay attention to any of my like my followers and stuff, like how many. But it's funny when you see someone like a 999, like thousands of big market seems for the community. So
It is. And I'm hoping to get like I want to get to like 1,025 before I make like a thank you tweet because it's not stable right now. It keeps
no,
fluctuating.
that's hilarious.
Oh man.
So you guys Giants fans?
He is.
I am.
Okay.
I'm
He
not.
was.
No,
And
I
he keeps
was,
trading.
and now I'm having an intervention
Yeah.
soon.
Can't wait for that episode.
That's with
Uh-oh.
FF coach Dan from Dynasty Theory. I'm having an intervention, but it's down to
Uh-oh.
the Dolphins or Cardinals. We'll see.
Okay, those are two really interesting franchises.
Yeah, I want to see if the Dolphins fuck up this draft or not. That's what I'm waiting on. If
I
they
mean,
don't fuck it up, I'm probably leaning towards Dolphins.
there's a chance, well, a good chance of that. But I mean, you got Dave. I mean, you got Gettleman, which is Paul? How do you feel about Gettleman?
It's his last year to make it something.
No,
Oh
I don't
man,
know. He's got to do something. I mean, the Giants are definitely going to be better this year than they were last year.
I mean, yeah, I would hope so.
They're going to do some. Hopefully, get some picks in this draft to help the offensive line out a little bit. And
No,
just
yeah, they
tweeted
were
it. Do you want to
atrocious.
retweet
Their
it?
line was awful last year.
yeah,
I just tweeted it. I'm gonna
they,
send it in
they
the
should
group
be
chat.
a lot better this year.
Yeah,
And I do like what I see from Daniel Jones. I just think he needs some protection.
There's rumors saying they may take Herbert.
Oh,
Hey,
that'd be bananas.
I like Herbert in the draft.
Apparently
I
the
don't like
Giants
to
had
take
him as the highest QB since 2018, above Kyler, above all those guys. I'm like, what the?
Yeah, I like Herbert as a QB coming in. But why would the Giants take back-to-back quarterbacks?
Yeah, I mean,
It's because it's Gettleman.
because Dave Gettleman.
Yeah, I don't know. I like our new head coach. I think he's going to be good for the team. I think Saquon's going to have a great year, especially catching balls out of the backfield, considering what the coach did at the Patriots scheme of things. So
Right.
if he can put some of that into the Giants program, I
Well,
think
everyone
Saquon's
that's
going to have a great
came
year.
from the Patriots and tried to make it like the Patriots have all failed.
Well, yeah. Well,
You got Bill O'Brien being an idiot. He's the worst. And then you got
well, we'll see.
Matt Patricia failing.
Yeah, no, that's yeah. We'll see what Flores can do. So
Yeah, Flores is looking good. He looked good last year with the Dolphins, honestly. From
yeah,
what they had.
that's the most direction they've had in a long time. So
So Justin said you have your own website and everything, huh?
yeah, I do. I just got it up and running last week. It's annualanalysis.com. So basically what it is just predicated off of what I've been doing on Twitter. A lot of breakdowns on like human movement and biomechanics of the prospects in this class and how they kind of fit in terms of I guess landing spot in the NFL, like what kind of players they are stylistically, as well as like what role could they play at the NFL level. I think right now, I think I have like 13 prospects up, or 12 or 13. Zach Moss is planning to go up tomorrow, which would be fun right before the NFL draft.
Yeah.
No, it's been definitely a fun ride. I mean, I started working on it like 6-7 months ago, and then finally launched it last week. So it's been exciting.
Really good. It looks really really clean, and I like the GIFs and stuff like that too.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it. I mean, I wanted to do something a little different, and kind of blend like the film world and the human movement together, and kind of do my own analysis, my own spin on what these prospects are kind of like.
That's fantastic. That's a different outlook.
No, for sure. I mean, it's all about it's bringing a different perspective, a fresh one. People can grab onto and take it as their own if they wish.
Yep, that's good.
All right, ready to get going?
Let's go.
All right.
Old school Paul, new school Justin. Man, y'all still going to school though. Sit down, listen up. Father, son, y'all think it's just another one. Fade the Vader, they be grading players, all it's done is made the piper pay me, and they've been grinding lately. Up late, hit the waivers, don't hate the player, hate me. It's just a game, boy, never gifted one on Christmas. Instead I asked for ships to hit everything off my wish list. Check the litmus, do y'all really not get this? Hit this triangular shaped button, I don't want you to miss this. But I guess that's really none of my business. Me risky free, cruise with Paul and Justin just listening. Yards after contact and catch, that's a lot of distance. The kind of info make me wanna blow opponents' kisses. But I gotta be clear, there is one key difference. Relationship is deep in this vein of ellipses. Like how Justin agreed to washing all the dishes. I'm just grateful Paul turned the miss into the misses. Father, son, pie, get down on the get down. If you don't get it now, then get out. Father, son, pie, sit down and get rich now. If you're not feeling it now, then get out.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Father Son Fantasy Football Podcast. My name is Paul, and we are one night before the NFL Draft.
Yeah, NFL Draft's tomorrow. My name is Justin, and NFL Draft, you mentioned it. We're talking rookie wide receiver prospects, so you got to bring on someone who knows at least a little something about rookies coming in, and who better than Angelo? Angelo, what's going on, man?
What's up,
Not much. No, what's up, guys? I'm happy to be here. Thank you again for inviting me. It's going to be a fun hour.
Yeah, so you just launched your website, and tell people before you get into it, like, what's your background on football and all that kind of knowledge and stuff?
For sure. So I work in human performance and sport and human performance, and I was an athlete myself in the track and field world. So I kind of saw like firsthand behind the scenes, I guess, a little bit on what goes into being an elite level athlete from like a movement perspective. Like, what are some of the qualities that these guys possess in the field of play that make them stand out from the 1% of the 1%? And that's the most unique part about it. And the website's predicated off just that. It's on taking human performance and biomechanics and kind of blending it in with fantasy football, and kind of seeing where these guys fit, not just in their own roles and stylistically, but also in the ecosystems they're going to be in the NFL. If a guy goes into a zone blocking scheme, is that a really good fit for him or not? Or, we talk about a receiver, like there's some pretty polarizing ones in this class, like Henry Ruggs, Denzel Mims. It's going to be really important for them to be with good offensive coordinators who are creative, who can get them the ball down the field. And it's kind of looking at all of those type of things and kind of blending it into one. And it's kind of a one-stop shop for film analysis, as well as my own takes on how these rookies kind of fit in this era of the NFL.
Yeah, so it's perfect to tie it in. I don't watch a lot of film on these prospects. I mainly look at the stats and analytics and that portion. I watch some film on some guys I like, some guys I don't like, but I'd put $1 million that you watch way more film than me, and you look at it in a different way. So this is perfect, nice little contrast between the two.
Yeah.
And who better to start off with than my number one wide receiver, CeeDee Lamb. Dad, what's your take on CeeDee Lamb? This guy is just a beast.
I mean, it's a coin flip. Who should be taken first, him or Jerry?
Well, Judy's probably gonna go first, I think, but we'll
Well,
talk about
I
potential
mean,
landing spots too.
I don't think you can get wrong with either one of these guys. So even as a freshman, he had 46 catches, 807 yards, and he improved the last 2 seasons. Right, last year he had over 1,300 yards, 15 touchdowns. He had a 4.50 speed. He can line up all over the field. Any team's going to be happy to get this guy. He'll go high in the first round and has the talent to make an immediate impact at the next level.
Yeah, I love CeeDee Lamb. I wish he weighed like maybe 10 pounds more, but
Yeah,
other
he
than
weighs
that,
what,
he's
189,
198,
somewhere around there.
198. I wish he was like around the 205 to 210 range. That'd probably make him closer to a 5-star prospect. But he has the breakout age, 19.4, 81st percentile. The college dominator was there. Yards after the catch beast, and performed with any quarterback he was given. So you had Kyler Murray, and then you go from Jalen Hurts. So no real way to build chemistry for back-to-back years, and he still performed. And the thing I like about him is he was also used in special teams, and it's hard to
Yeah.
see like your number one wide receiver get used in special teams. So also showing that dynamic ability, but very physical wide receiver, makes magic happen with the balls in his hands. But I want to see what Angelo saw when he was watching his film on CeeDee Lamb.
One thing before you get to Angelo, on the film, he actually looks like he's moving slower than he's actually running. If you watch his film.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. It's a really good point. Yeah, I mean, for me, I mean, you guys kind of hit the nail on the head. I mean, CeeDee Lamb's the most complete wide receiver prospect in this class, in my opinion. I think he possesses all the physical traits you want to see in a pass catcher, and he has the alpha mentality you need in your number one receiver when he steps on the field, right? And that's really important if you're taking a guy in the top 12 to 15 picks. You know, I heard rumblings he might go at 8 to the Cardinals, you know, and that wouldn't surprise me at all with his chemistry and a relationship with Kyler Murray. But he should be an immediate contributor when he steps on the field. He has all-pro upside in the right environment. He wins consistently in contested catch situations, and he's an extremely instinctual runner with the ball in his hands. You mentioned his run after the catch ability, Justin, and I think that's something that's, you know, for him, it's interesting because he's only a 4.5 guy. And Paul, you mentioned he doesn't look like he's running very fast, but he's an extremely fluid talent as a mover in general. And I think for him, he's going to be one of those guys that is going to be taken from, in my opinion, pick 8 to pick 15. And a team's going to get their number one receiver, and he has the alpha mentality to be an all-pro.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. You have an ideal fit for him?
Oh, man. I mean, I think I would love the Cardinals, in all honesty. I think with the way, you know, Kingsbury wants to pass the ball, and giving Kyler Murray another talent to grow alongside DeAndre Hopkins would be a special offense to watch. And for me, I think that would be my favorite fit for him, real football-wise. I think fantasy-wise, Oakland would be probably the best. Oh, not Las Vegas now.
Yeah.
Gruden, I think, needs a number one receiver for whoever his quarterback's going to be there. But I think he would fit well anywhere, honestly. I think he's one of those guys where the talent will take over, similar to what we saw with A.J. Brown last year. He was my number one receiver coming out. And I think the talent took over even with a poor landing spot in the first part of the year in Tennessee. But I think, San Francisco's an opportunity for him as well. But I think Oakland might be the best landing spot for him if you want to see production in the immediate future.
Yeah, I like that spot a lot. And best comparable player on Player Profiler is none other than Jerry Rice.
I saw that.
You can't get mad about that.
That's a big shoes to fill.
It's a big shoes to fill. I think he has potential to do it. But you mentioned the Raiders, and I know Raiders looking at Jerry Jeudy. I can see John Gruden liking Jerry Jeudy. Now, doesn't really pop off at all in the statistical measures as much because he played at Alabama. He had lots of heads to feed. But I only had to watch enough film. I could just see some gifs. This guy is one of the best separators that we've seen in a long, long time. Playing at Alabama, you're not going to have as high as a college dominator rating. Didn't really get used in special teams at all, so, I mean, not as dynamic as I'd like to see. But the way he separates, he's definitely the most polished route runner I think we've seen in some time. Angelo, you could test his route running more than I can, so I'm going to let you take the stage here and talk about Jerry Jeudy.
No, for sure. I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head in being a polished route runner. I think for Jeudy, the thing that's really impressive to me is how good he is in his stop-start qualities. We look at the decelerative element of being a receiver, of changing direction, shifting mid-route, down-shifting, up-shifting, and getting up the field. And he does it with ease, and he's nearly unguardable if you leave him in single coverage. I think he has the opportunity to be one of the best route runners of all time at the position.
Ooh.
I think he's a special player, and it's going to be interesting to see the situation he gets brought into. He reminds me a lot of Chad Ochocinco, and I don't say that lightly because Chad Ochocinco was one of the best separators the game has ever seen, and I think Jeudy could be in that conversation when it's all said and done. But he's going to be a really good option in the short to intermediate areas, and he has the play speed to take the top off defenses as well. So I think he has the ability to be a true number one receiver in an offense, and it'll be really interesting to see where he gets drafted. I think San Francisco would be a really good spot. I don't think they have another alpha besides George Kittle. I love Deebo Samuel, but I think he's more in a secondary role in an offense. I think that best suits him. But I think, for Jerry Jeudy, he's a pretty special talent in terms of what he can do on the field. I think CeeDee Lamb is probably the most polished and pro-ready receiver, but I think Jerry Jeudy might have the highest ceiling of any receiver in this class because from a pure movement quality standpoint, there is no one as sudden, unpredictable, yet effective as Jerry Jeudy is. And he has all-pro written all over him, and wouldn't be surprised if we see that all-pro or even a Pro Bowl season pretty soon here.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all. And I think it's looking like he's going to the Raiders. I think that makes a lot of sense. Or
Yeah.
possibly the Jets. So he could probably produce right away. Dad, what do you guys say about Jerry Jeudy real quick?
Angelo said it the best. His start-stop is phenomenal. Then his release package after that, where he could just stop and go and be right at the same speed he was before, is phenomenal. I mean, he played alongside Henry Ruggs, right, which might have hurt him a little bit, but he did catch 77 balls for 1,163 yards, 10 touchdowns. I mean, he's going to put up solid numbers as a rookie, especially if he lands on the right team.
Yeah, you mentioned Henry Ruggs. He actually wasn't that big of a college producer and didn't really get used as much, but this guy has blazing fast speed. Talk about biomechanics. I think this guy probably wins at all the aspects of the biomechanics. You're going to see videos of him on Twitter dunking the basketball, doing windmills, 360s, and all that stuff. And I'm not the best at correlating that to NFL success, but you got to be a pretty good athlete to do all this stuff. And it's hard for me to find a player comparable for this guy because not only with the speed, he also has great burst, but he never broke out in college. Doesn't really have the college production. So it's a tough person to evaluate. And he's going to be along with the first 3 wide receivers coming off the board in the draft. And it wouldn't surprise me if I see him go first out of all the wide receivers.
Yeah.
I can see a team reaching for him because of that speed.
Yeah.
And
100%.
not necessarily for fantasy, but for real life football, field stretcher is much, much more important. But it's very hard for me to make a fantasy stance in this guy who's got no real breakout age, no real college production. It's hard. I'd rather be the guy who's missing out on this prospect in my rookie drafts rather than someone else taking him. But before we hop into more about Ruggs, in the chat, we have any worries about these reports about Jeudy's knees? You see the meniscal thing and meniscus surgery. From what I'm seeing, I think it's just people want him to fall. I think it's smokescreen season in the last 2 weeks.
Sure.
I think that the Denver Broncos probably want him to fall to him. I'm just saying I think it's a lot of smoke in the air, and I don't listen to most of this draft rumor stuff 2 weeks before a draft because it's all just teams trying to get players to fall. You see Giants possibly taking Herbert, Redskins maybe taking 2. It's just so much stuff right now. It's hard to find out what's real from what's fake. So I think that the Jeudy knee injury, it hasn't really affected him. He hasn't really got injured. I think is why I saw one of my PTs I follow on Twitter, either the fantasy PT or Ethan Turner. I don't know which one, but it really hasn't affected his play. And you got Tua's wrist injuries coming out. Apparently, one was reported as a wrist injury when it was just like a left index finger break. So much stuff right now for smoke and mirrors. Yeah. So it's so hard to tell what's real. So I'm not buying this Jeudy injury-prone meniscus tab because it hasn't affected him yet, and it probably would have affected him sooner rather than later.
Sure.
Tissues regrow, so you're gonna have some more support. So back on Henry Ruggs, Dad, what do you guys say about Henry Ruggs? How do you go first?
He's never been their primary focus at Alabama, right? It was either Jeudy or Smith, but I think this guy was a big play waiting to happen. He averaged 17.9 yards per catch in his 3 seasons. Last year, he averaged just under 20 yards per catch. I mean, NFL teams want a guy like this who can stretch the field, and he is that type of player. Kind of reminds me of Tyreek Hill. He has that speed where he can.
That is the absolute ceiling. Any fast guy we see usually gets compared to Tyreek Hill.
In the open.
Yeah.
So I mean, I expect good things from this guy.
You like Henry Ruggs?
I do like Henry Ruggs.
Well, Angelo.
I don't think he's going to go ahead of the other 2 guys, but I do like him.
All right. What do you guys say about Henry Ruggs?
I'm with your dad, man. I love Henry Ruggs. I think when we look at players like this, we kind of always try to nitpick and see what they don't do well or what they didn't do in college. And people talk about the production concerns. But historically, this Alabama receiving core that we've seen is one of the all-time greatest and projects to have 4 first-round talents on campus at the same time, essentially, with Waddle and Smith next year. And that's kind of uncharted territory in terms of production, right? Having 4 first-round talents on the field at the same time is going to be tough for all those guys. All those guys are going to lose targets because of it, right? And we saw Smith not come out this year, and I think a large part is he didn't really get a large piece of the pie. I think Smith's a first-round talent, but we saw Judy there. Obviously, he's the alpha of that offense, but Waddle's no slouch. Ruggs is great. Smith's very good in his own right. But for me, I don't think Ruggs is your traditional deep threat. I think he can win at the line of scrimmage. He's extremely dangerous on manufactured touches. I think that's what really sets him apart too. Is he's great around the line of scrimmage, and that's a part of his game that can really elevate him to the next level. And we look at players, like Will Fuller, Marquise Goodwin, your more traditional deep threats. The one thing they don't do very well is they're not as sure-handed as some of these other guys that we're talking about. Like Tyreek Hill's a total enigma, right? He's a complete unicorn at the position.
Sure.
From what he does from a speed perspective, as well as tracking the ball and pulling in contested catches. But I think with Ruggs, we're looking at a guy kind of similar in that light of we don't really know who he is. I think he's a different style of player, and he's one of the best in-air athletes in this class, which is really interesting. He's great in contested catch situations, and he's extremely sure-handed for a so-called speed guy. And I think for me, I think it's undervalued how skilled of a player he is and can become. But he's a guy I think is going to go in the back first round of your rookie drafts. But I think he might have the chance, Justin, I think you mentioned it earlier, of being the first receiver off the board because of the demand of the position right now. I mean, teams need weapons, and there's no bigger vertical weapon in this class than Henry Ruggs III.
Yeah, he's definitely a polarizing prospect across Twitter. You see people say, oh, he's trash, oh, he's good. I think I'm more leaning towards the he's good side. I have him in my top 6 for ranks. I mean, if he gets that first wide receiver off the board kind of capital, I'm going to lean towards it. But I think if Kyle Shanahan gets a hold of this guy, you're going to see San Fran have him open up the field for Deebo Samuel. I think
for sure.
It's going to be a perfect landing spot. But, yeah, 5'11", 188, so he's not that undersized speed guy. He's kind of right where he kind of should be, maybe put on a little bit more muscle. But super athletic. The contested catch point definitely helps him out. So Henry Ruggs is interesting. I don't know if I'm going to be the guy who takes him in my rookie draft, though, just because I like to probably get a running back over him. But we'll see where he's going to be falling in all these rookie mock drafts after the draft. We'll see where people are going to be taking him. Now, Jalen Reagor, I'm going to skip Justin Jefferson for a second. Sure. I love Jalen Reagor. I think that this guy is very dynamic. I even think he's a better prospect than Jerry Jeudy. And the reason why I say that is because if you were to swap Jeudy and Reagor, put Reagor on Alabama, and put Jeudy on TCU, I think that Reagor would have a lot better production. This guy faced an awful quarterback situation last year.
Yeah.
Completely awful. I think he saw like an accurate pass on less than 50% of his pass or something like that. So really nothing to work with. Super dynamic, was used also in special teams. What do you guys say about him, Dad?
I think he's the best slot receiver in the draft.
Yeah.
Right? Scouts love his route running ability, the hands, the toughness. I think he's going to be a good versatile weapon for whatever team takes him. He also had 170 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. So here's a guy who gets involved both receiving and a little bit in the run game. So it's going to be exciting to see where it lands.
Yeah, I like the dynamic ability, 384 yards in special teams last year. Junior year, did a lot better than his senior year, had over 1,000 yards. But then again, the quarterback situation.
Said, the quarterback play
completely
was
trash.
For
it's like you being out there for TCU,
right.
You throwing this guy balls.
I'm 53 years old. I'm not throwing the ball very far.
I think you would probably be a better quarterback prospect than what they had there. But the thing that people were really surprised about was his 4-yard dash time, 4.47 at the combine. However, I'm not that concerned about it. There's videos, there's pictures of the timer starting when he hasn't even moved off the line yet, like a 0.4 second start. So bump it down, or 0.04, I should say. So like 4.42, and that's when he was weighing 206. He posted his little tiny draft pro day video on Twitter, and they had 4.22 or 4.28 when he was weighing 197. So he cut down 8 pounds and bumped down his 40 time a lot, but I think stopwatch. You know what? Let's just put it in the middle. Let's give him like a mid 4.3, so 4.35. We'll say.
That'll work.
Still very very fast. His burst score was off the chart. His vertical jump and broad jump was just insane. I think it was like 11 foot 6 inches or something like that for a broad jump. So super explosive athlete,
Sure.
and people were like he could fall to the late second round or he could go in the first. And as of the last week, again, I take this with a grain of salt kind of thing. They're saying he's going to be a first-round pick. I know the Saints said they like him at 24. I wouldn't be surprised if Minnesota grabbed him, but I think that Green Bay at 30 makes a lot more sense if the Saints don't take him at 24. But Angelo, what do you got to say about Jalen Reagor?
I like what you said. I mean, I think Green Bay at 30 makes a ton of sense to me. I think he's one of the most explosive athletes in this 2020 class, first of all. I think, a guy who can reach upwards of 22.5 miles an hour on the field of play is plenty fast in my book. When we look at, time speed versus play speed, well, we got to also take into account, I believe Reagor was a 25 plus foot long jumper in high school too. So he's plenty fast. He has the explosive measurables to be a very good multi-dimensional NFL player because he does have the route running prowess there. And he's also adds value as a punt returner. And when we look at all of those things, yes, he had lack of college production, but he also had extremely poor quarterback play, just a bad overall environment in TCU for pass catchers. But I like him a lot. I think he is going to be a mid-20s to low 30s guy for me. I think he's a 3-level threat that's going to get pushed down the draft because of his lack of collegiate production. But I think NFL teams understand the type of playmaker he is and what he can do for an offense.
Yeah, I mean, I love Reagor. He's my bae of this draft class. I think that's just the guy I fallen in love with from ever since last year. And my take on him being a better prospect than Jeudy, is that a little too far off? I understand that the route running nuances are completely different from the two, but from a prospect standpoint, if you were to switch teams per se, do you think that you could see Reagor having more draft capital than Jeudy if he went to Alabama and you switched the roles?
Oh man, it's a great question. I think it's extremely tough to say. I think this class has so many talented receivers that it's going to be really difficult to say, who is the better player, because they're going to all go to very different environments and ecosystems, and their landing spots obviously are going to be very different. That's what we're talking about here in terms of ecosystem. But I think they bring different things to the table. I think Reagor is a much more dynamic, versatile threat down the field. I think that's where he can really make his money in the NFL. I think on manufactured touches, they both do a great job. But I think in terms of route running nuance and being an extremely skilled tactician, I think Jerry Jeudy is the best tactician in the last couple classes. And that's nothing on Reagor or any of the guys in this class. I just think Judy's in a class of his own when it comes to being extremely skilled at the position of wide receiver. I think Reagor is a better athlete. I think he's one of the best athletes in the class. He's right up there with Henry Ruggs and a guy we'll talk about later in Laviska Shenault Jr. in terms of being pure athletic measurables and being able to physically dominate on the field of play with his size and speed. He's not an overly big guy, but I think he weighed in, 208, I think it was.
206, I think it was the combine. Yeah.
At the combine, I think he probably plays at around 194.
Yeah,
which is probably better playing weight, but he's a physical guy, and I think I compared him a little bit style wise to Steve Smith Sr.
Ooh.
I think.
Oh, I love that.
I think that's what I see when I watch Reagor is he can mix it up and blocking. He can catch the ball around the line of scrimmage and take it to the house. He can get the ball down the field as a deep threat. But I think for me, man, I think Reagor's in that tier of guys that the sky's the limit, but we have no idea where they're going to go and how high. If he drops in the early second round, mid-second round, it's going to depend more on landing spot for me, obviously, because draft capital means a ton for receivers too. But I like him a lot. I don't think you're far off when you say his career would have been vastly different with Alabama. But I think Jerry Jeudy, I have Jeudy a little bit higher than Reagor. I also have Justin Jefferson a little higher than Reagor as well. But I do have Reagor firmly entrenched in my top 5.
Awesome. I'd like to hear that. And before we get any further, if you guys are listening and enjoying the show, please subscribe on whatever podcast thing you're on. Also, if you're on YouTube right now, we go live on YouTube for people listening to the podcast. Father Son Fantasy Football, just type that in, subscribe there. My Twitter's at JustinFSFF. See, I don't even know. Your Twitter's at PaulFSFF, and then Angelo's Twitter's at Angelo_fantasy. So go follow us there. And now,
That's right. Follow them all.
the exciting prospects I think happen now. You get down on the top 4, kind of like draft capital wise, and you get into the Justin Jefferson range. The Denzel Mims, T. Higgins is a little bit polarizing too, but I want to start with Justin Jefferson, mega producer. Ever since Joe Burrow came to town, 1,500 plus yards, 111 catches, a 91% catch rate, which is insane. And he's a slot man. He did really well in the slot. I think he played almost every single snap from the slot last year. I believe I heard that from Mitch saying it. And I think he has a very, very high floor. Once you get past Judy and Lamb, you have the prospects of Rager, Jefferson, and Mims. I think you go Rager for the ceiling play. I think Justin Jefferson's a very high floor play. And then Mims also is a combination of two where he has a little bit of a floor and a ceiling, but not as high as a ceiling as a Jalen Rager per se. But Jefferson blew me away at the combine running a 4.43 when everyone was expecting him to run from a 4.58 to a 4.60. So the speed was there, production is there, and I like Justin Jefferson. He's my number 3 or 4 prospect on my rankings. Well, not prospect, as my fantasy rankings. So I think Philadelphia is probably going to be a nice team to select him, depending if anyone wants to trade up and get him. But, after this week, we're going to have all these speculations come to you don't need to speculate anymore. We know what they're going to be. It's going to make a lot of things more clear. So I know you like Justin Jefferson, Dad. So what are you going to say about him?
I love Justin Jefferson. Look, his numbers last year were off the chart. Like you said, 1,500 yards, 18 touchdowns. People say it's because of the offense they had. Yeah, LSU had a great offense last year, but this guy is full of talent, right? I mean, he's going to easily could become the best receiver in this class, I think. I mean, the great fit for Jefferson, I said it a couple podcasts ago, is the marriage between him and the Packers. That's what the Packers need, a guy in the slot. I think he'd be a great fit in Green Bay.
They're going to have to trade up to get him, though.
Well, they might. I mean, like you said, we don't know what's going to happen until tomorrow.
It's all interesting.
I could see him with Rodgers for Rodgers' last couple of years, and I think he would be a great NFL prospect right there.
Yeah. Angela, what'd you see about Justin Jefferson?
I think he's one of the most reliable receivers in this class. And I think you hit the nail on the head with his 91% catch rate. I think he's an extremely savvy route runner with very impressive stop-start qualities. Imagine if Keenan Allen was a legitimate deep threat too. I think that's what you get when you get Justin Jefferson. I think he can play outside or in the slot. I think we saw an abundance of his snaps come in the slot during this season with Joe Burrow making his historic stamp on college football. But in 2018, Jefferson played a lot more outside as well, and he made plays in both areas. And I think he's a 3-level threat, and I think he's probably the safest receiver besides CeeDee Lamb, in my opinion. I think right now he's a little more polished than Jerry Jeudy. I think Jeudy has a little higher ceiling than he does, but I think Jefferson's going to be a guy that's going to contribute all over the field, and he's going to be a quarterback's best friend on 2 important downs. It's going to be 3rd down and when you're in the red zone as well. I think that's going to be the biggest thing on 3rd and 4th downs. I think on crucial moments of the game, I think he's going to grow into a very reliable target for an offense, and I think he's a trade-up candidate too. I think a team like Philadelphia is going to have to trade up to get Jefferson. I think there's going to be a couple teams vying for his services. I think my best landing spot for him is either Philadelphia or New Orleans.
Green Bay.
I would like him in Green. I just don't think he falls. I don't think he falls that far. They'd have to definitely trade up to get him. But he's definitely a trade up candidate for me, man. I mean, for teams that are in immediate contention for an NFC or AFC title and potentially a Super Bowl. I think he's going to be a guy that's definitely going to be highly sought after.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting. Best comparable player on Player Profiler is Reggie Wayne. I think that mixes them both together. You can't go wrong with that either. But I like the Keenan Allen, but with deep field, like more presence like that. I think it's a perfect way to say it. And speaking about player comparables, Denzel Mims, best comparable player, none other than Chris Godwin, baby. I love Chris Godwin. I think that's an awesome comparable. He lit it up at the combine, Denzel Mims, but he has that Baylor wide receiver stigma with him, which is kind of scary because you see Corey Coleman bust. You see I mean, I don't know. There's so many busts for Baylor wide receivers over and over again. It's just kind of disappointing. And I think that he's the one that can break the curse. I mean, production as a sophomore, I think that's pretty big. And also, you mentioned the quarterback play for Jalen Rager. The quarterback play at Baylor wasn't that great either. But what do you got to say about Denzel Mims, Dad?
You know, he's another guy with all the tools. He's 6'3", 215 pounds. He ran a 4.38. He topped 1,000 yards as a sophomore and senior, and at least 8 touchdowns in each of his final seasons with the Bears. One thing I do think he needs to do is to sharpen his route running and hands to succeed in the NFL. But I mean, this guy's going to get plenty of opportunities, right? I mean, he ate the DBs for breakfast in the Senior Bowl. The guy, he looks good.
Yeah,
He
Senior
looks
Bowl stand out. Everyone kept on saying
Yeah.
Denzel Mims, Denzel Mims, Denzel Mims.
Another guy, landing spot is very, very crucial for him.
Yeah. So what'd
Any
you
of these guys. I mean, wherever they
yeah,
land,
landing
the
spot's gonna be
opportunity
crucial
is
for
going
all.
to be there.
100%.
Opportunity is going to be there.
Yeah, but I like what I
100%.
saw on film from the contested catches that Denzel Mims had. But what do you gotta say about what you saw from the biomechanics and some things on film from Denzel Mims, Angela?
I think we're talking about like the biomechanics and what Denzel Mims does well as an athlete. I think he has top of the class body control and is a top of the class in air athlete. I think that's where he really shines and can really make his money in the NFL. I think he's a great blend of size, speed as well. The speed doesn't show up as much on tape, but for me, my only concerns about him are he doesn't have a super diverse route tree, right? And we're looking at a wide receiver one in an offense, looking at a guy that can, run, anything from the slant to the go. You know what I mean? So, I mean, you want a guy who's a pretty good tactician as a route runner, pretty polished in that area as well. I don't think that's Mims right now. I think he has a long way to go in terms of that. I don't see him as a wide receiver one in an offense right away because of that lack of diverse route tree. My concerns besides that are just lack of production over the last 9 games. He only had 100-yard performance. He started off the year extremely strong. I believe got like 5 of his first 5 games were 100-yard performances. I think right around that. But I think that concerns me of him being an alpha. I don't know if I've ever seen him truly dominate a game. And I like Mims. The size speed comparables are fantastic. I think he's a really good athlete in contested catch situations and is one of the best athletes in the class at high pointing the ball at his size, great leaping ability. But I don't know right now if he's a guy that I would take over a guy like Rager or a guy like Ruggs or even a guy like we'll talk about later, Michael Pittman and Laviska Shenault Jr. I think I have him a little lower than those guys. I just think the ceiling for Mims is pretty good. It's pretty high. I think the floor is a little lower than I think we're looking at. I think there's a big reason why he wasn't as talked about before the NFL Combine and before the Senior Bowl. I don't think he was on many people's top 5 to top 8 lists. So there's a few guys I like before him, but again, this is a super deep class. And I said that I dislike Denzel Mims. I dislike him at his current ADP right now, which is, I've been in mocks and in drafts already and have taken him at 108, 107.
Ooh.
And I mean, people are really grown to like this guy because, they see 6'3" and they see 4.38.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be interesting to see where he lands. I think we keep saying 30 to the Packers. I think the Packers do take a receiver, but I wouldn't be shocked if they don't take one in the first round and end up trading up in the second round to do so. But there's the crop of talent in this receiver class is tremendous, and it's so deep and versatile. That'll be really interesting to see where he goes as well as some of the others.
Yeah, he's landing spot is going to matter for him, especially if you said about the non-full route tree. And talks are saying late first, early second now. So if Rager's gone before 30, I wouldn't be surprised to see Green Bay possibly take Mims. I think that'd be a good landing spot and help him out with Aaron Rodgers. But I think second round's a little bit more likely now, but the combine definitely helped out his stock a lot. And he's also not an early declare, which I forget who did the study, but someone said like of non-early declares, it's not as correlation with success in the NFL is a little bit lower than if you do declare early. So something to keep your eye out on, and landing spot's going to help us out, of course, with all these prospects. Next, guys, I want to go through a little bit quicker now because we're getting out of the cream of the crop kind of thing. But T. Higgins before the combine was touted very, very highly, and then he didn't run the combine. He bitched out. I don't like that. And then you saw him his pro day. The agent was trying to say like a 4.43, but it came out to be like a 4.56, I think, or something like that. But he's not a guy who really wins with speed. So for a guy with him, it doesn't really matter as much, I don't think. The contested catches that he does and the way he's able to also high point the ball in his college production, I think it tells for itself at Clemson. But what do you like about T. Higgins? What don't you like that?
I think he's a big-time catch radius guy who wins more than his fair share of contested catches.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not a phenomenal separator, like you just said. He's really long. His route tree is not very diverse, and without elite athleticism, there's a chance he might not win as much in college at the next level. So I think in other drafts, he would be one of the top 5, top 6 receivers, but in this class, just not going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got talent. He's definitely got talent.
More birds are chirping. They're saying that the Vikings really, really like T. Higgins at 25. And that's taking him over a guy like Rager or Jefferson if they're both, depending on if they're there. I think it's a mistake.
He's 6'4", too. He could be a red zone
6'4",
target.
216.
Right, so.
Yeah. What do you see about T. Higgins, Angelo? Help clear the air a little bit.
I think he's going to struggle a little bit to separate at the next level. Yeah. I think for me that's my biggest knock on him. It's not that he doesn't have great deep speed, but he's the below average accelerator for the position. I think that for me is my biggest my knock on him. I think he's like you said, catch radius, big body, really good in air athlete. He's going to be a guy who's going to win at the catch point. But I think the ceiling is kind of limited because we look at guys like, let's say, AJ Green, for example, who have that quality, but you have to also respect their speed because, they're 4 or 5 guys. They're not guys you can slack on in that regard. But I don't think T. Higgins has that with him. I think he's a nice secondary option in an offense potentially. He's much better after the catch than you would think because of his lack of acceleration ability, his lack of top end speed. But for me, he's a guy that I'm not going to be drafting at cost unless he falls into a very good landing spot. Minnesota's a really interesting one because with Stefanski out of the way, what are they going to do in terms of their run pass ratio? What's it going to look like? Obviously, they were a big run heavy team last year with Dalvin Cook, and when that offense was clicking, they were clicking, man. But I don't know. I mean, with Diggs out of the way too, it's there's a large amount of targets are open, so we'll see what happens. But I like Higgins. I like a lot of these guys. I mean, I'll be very honest. I like all these guys we're talking about because this is one of the deepest receiver classes that we've probably seen in a while in terms of just the depth of talent. And in the right situation, any of these guys could be Pro Bowl receivers. Any of these guys we're talking about. But I think for me, they have to hit in a good landing spot in a good ecosystem with a creative offensive coordinator that can get them the ball.
Yeah, tomorrow night's going to be so exciting.
Oh, it is.
We're waiting for building up the hype. Hey, first round draft capital will definitely help T. Higgins out. Great stat here by Jack Miller on T. Higgins. So in 2019, Higgins finished with a stat line of 56 catches, 1,167 yards, and 13 touchdowns. Only 11 of those catches, 169 of those yards, and 2 touchdowns came after halftime, which is insane. So 81% of his receptions, 85% of his yards, and 85% of his touchdowns were in the first half of the game. Clemson dominating opponents don't have to use these guys in the second half of the game. So who knows what he could have had if he was in more competitive games, probably even more stat line. I think landing spot, it's going to matter for all these guys, but I'm excited to see where he's going to go. And if he does go to Minnesota at 25, I think that's not a bad situation to land in at all. Next guy we want to talk about here is Brandon Ayuk. So Michael Pittman, Brandon Ayuk, pretty close in my rankings. I like Brandon Ayuk's dynamic ability, the way he's able to kick return, and the way he has yard after the catch ability. I'm very high on Brandon Ayuk, and of course, as the draft season progressed, more and more talks about him being liked by NFL teams. More talks about him even creeping into the first round, possibly. If Jefferson's gone, the Eagles like Ayuk, and I think if Ayuk's a first-round pick, that just bumps it up at all because of the draft capital. But 92nd percentile burst score, and he's a JUCO transfer. But every time he got a full opportunity to show and be the alpha, he succeeded. So he was really good at JUCO. Obviously, it's how he got called up. With N'Keal Harry in 2018, didn't really do too much. But then last year, you saw him just take over. He dominated. He produced like crazy. Granted, the competition wasn't that great. Pac-12 wide receivers are kind of hard to evaluate, but I really like what I saw out of Brandon Ayuk. I think he's dynamic, and I think that dynamic ability is going to translate well to the next level in the NFL. Angelo, what did you see on Brandon Ayuk, and what's your take for him coming into the NFL?
I think Ayuk's a unique and raw physical talent that we're looking at here. I think he has extremely long levers, he had an 80-inch wingspan at 6 feet. That's unprecedented. You know what I mean? I think I saw something where him and T. Higgins, and Higgins is 6'4". I think he had a larger wingspan than T. Higgins did, and that's crazy. So I think we're looking at a guy that just he's a really unique player. I think he's more skilled than meets the eye. But I think for me, the biggest impact he's going to have is on special teams. I think he has a very good chance of being an all-pro return man. I mean, you look at players, you look at where they're most comfortable on the field, and that's something that I always look for, especially when they move. They look rattled. They look more skittish in certain areas. Some players are really comfortable in the slot, outside, in the backfield. He's very comfortable on punt returns. He's very comfortable with guys flying around in his face. Extremely good movement qualities. A little unpolished as a route runner. But I think what NFL teams are going to like is the ability to be a really good high-level special teams player, as well as the ability to accelerate out of his breaks. I think that's something he does extremely well. And he's a unique mover because of the length at 6 feet tall. Like I said, long levers, long arms, very raw athletic prospect at the receiver position. For me, I think he might have to rely more on manufactured touches early on in his career. Because I think he still needs experience as a traditional wide receiver. A lot of his touches were around the line of scrimmage last year. But I think ultimately where he might make his money in the NFL is on special teams, which is not a bad thing. Obviously, for fantasy purposes, we don't want to hear that. But I think he has value to an NFL team. And if he gets drafted in the first round, that's going to be a big part of it. Because I think that third phase gets overlooked. I think he is a big part of a team putting together a championship level roster because of the impact he can have as a returner.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better. Dad, what do you guys say about Brandon Ayuk?
Yeah, and Angelo couldn't have said it any better. I mean, he does a great job returning kicks, right? Like you said, he come out of junior college, 1 year, 65 receptions, 1,190 yards, 8 touchdowns. He did have core muscle surgery this offseason.
Yeah,
I don't think it's a big concern. He has plenty of tools, but he might need time to develop at the next level, just like Angelo said. But
yeah,
if somebody who needs that and returning kicks, he's going to do fabulous.
Yeah. Excited to see where he's going to land and if he can possibly develop into a wide receiver. I mean, I don't know how he's going to do as an alpha on a team eventually, but as a number 2, a 1A, 1B kind of situation, depending on the landing spot. So I'm excited to see where he's going to go in the draft tomorrow. Another guy I'm excited to see where he's going to go is Michael Pittman. I think he's very he's got a high floor compared to other guys. Another guy who produces a senior. Don't like to love seeing these senior producers, but he did produce as a senior, and he looked pretty good. He's also a big body guy. I think he's 6'4", around 226. But Dad, I know you like Michael Pittman, so what do you guys say about him?
He's another big receiver. He uses his size to catch balls over defensive backs, kind of like a Galladay. New England could use this guy because he'd have all those targets that Gronk did over the top. He might have some speed limitations for the NFL, which is probably why he's going to go third. I think he's going to go in the 3rd round.
Yeah, but he's got the NFL pedigree because of his dad,
Yeah.
so I think you can see 2nd round possibly. But 93rd percentile speed score for a guy his size, 6'4", 223, ran a 4.52,
Yep.
89th percentile catch radius, like you mentioned. New England, you'd have basically 2 people who are really good at contested catches, but N'Keal Harry is better. I love N'Keal Harry,
Sure.
so him and Michael Pittman, interesting to see.
Sure. I mean, he's got strong hands, right? He was very productive in his final season. He has dealt with some rough quarterback play, top to bottom. So, I mean, he's got some talent, but another guy who could use a little work.
Yeah. What about Angelo? What do you guys say about Michael Pittman?
I think he's extremely underrated. I think for me, I'm really high on Pittman and his abilities. And it's funny, Paul, you comped Kenny Galladay. I think style-wise, that's exactly who I think of when I see Michael Pittman. It's because he's a smart but extremely smooth athlete with great body control and a natural feel for the position when the ball's in the air. I think for me, that's why I like him so much. Is he just has this feel about him. Like he's not super sudden, but he gets to his spots and he gets there quicker than you'd think. And I think for me, like you said, the 4.52 40, it shows up on tape. He eats up ground defensive backs a lot because they don't expect it with him being 6'4". I'm higher on him than I am on Higgins and Mims, honestly, because I think he's a player that you can tell he has a higher level of field IQ and intelligence to him. I think there's some players that kind of, you hear them speak to. I think the NFL Combine is one of the best things you can have to listen to prospects speak, listen to them talk, what they sound like, how they are behind the mic, answering questions they're not accustomed to. And I think I watched Pittman's interviews and I'm like, man, this young man can speak, and it shows in the field of play with how subtle he is, how smooth he is as a mover, and he always seems to be in the right spots at the right time. He's going to be a quarterback's best friend at the next level. And I think he's going to be a guy taken a little earlier than we think. You said third round. I could totally see it. I think he's going to be an early second round guy because I think this class is so deep that they need reliable options. There's going to be some bigger boom bust guys like Ayuk, like Chenault Jr. as well, that might go in the middle second round. Ayuk might even go in the first round. That's the thing. In this class, there's that crop of like 8 to 10 receivers potentially that have a chance. And all it takes is one team to fall in love, right? I mean, for crying out loud.
So fun.
Rashad Perrin was a first round pick, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
So it's all it takes is one team to fall in love, and then you have yourself a first rounder.
Yeah.
But we'll see for sure.
Yeah, Philip Dorsett, also a first-round pick, so we're excited to see him. We're going to
That
be
is
live
correct.
tomorrow during the draft, so follow Twitter at FireSunFF. If you're listening to us, it is draft day. If you listened to it when the day came out, it is Thursday.
Wow.
We'll be on tomorrow. We're going to have some listeners come on the show, too, to say some thoughts, and anyone else who wants to join in. We're going to be watching the technology failures and all that kind of stuff, too, so it's going to be fun. But Michael Pittman, definitely interesting. I hope he gets a good landing spot. I liked Houston as a landing spot until Bill O'Brien said, nah, I don't want this pick where there's a great wide receiver crop, and I'm just going to trade it away. So we'll see where Michael Pittman lands, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him early second or even creep into the first round if someone does fall in love with him. You mentioned for boom bust guys, kind of high ceiling. Laviska Shenault Jr., a guy I love pre-combine, super athletic. The dude's 6'1", 227. Basically Ezekiel Elliott at the wide receiver position and more, agile because he plays wide receiver. Had a pubic bone muscle disconnected from him, so I don't look at his 4.58 as anything, but still managed to run a 4.58, which is 78th percentile speed score with this injury. He got it fixed. Soft tissue injury is kind of a concern with him, but hard to tell if a guy's injury prone because we don't have data on all these college players and all their injuries. But I think he's a intriguing prospect for me. I like dynamic players. Shenault is pretty dynamic, used all over the field, used at running back in the goal line, used taking snaps. He's doing everything. And best comparable player on player profiler is AJ Brown. I think he's a little bit more dynamic than AJ Brown, but I like that comparison a lot. Shenault, I think, is one of your guys, Angelo. So I'll have you take the floor right here. And
He is my guy. I think there are certain players for me that when I watch their tape and I just go down, look at like certain games they play in, then I'm like, man, this guy is going to be good. This guy is an absolute talent, and there's something different about him. And I think for me, he is one of my guys this year. And if we just take out the injuries for a second, I mean, we're looking at players around his projected ADP. Something to note is, where is their ceiling? And he's being pushed right now into the mid-second-ish round of rookie drafts, right, in Superflex. And it's, you aren't going to go for floor plays right there. You're going to go for guys with super high ceilings. And Shenault's ceiling is as high as any receiver in this class. And people forget the level of production he had. People are like, well, he can't win outside. He this, and that. He's injury prone. But for me, I mean, he had one of the best 5-game stretches in college football history. He averaged 10 receptions, 142 yards, and 2 touchdowns over 5 games. And that's a stretch that no one in this class can match that type of stretch, for one. For two, we saw that from a guy who's 6'1", 227. And that's the thing, the physical size, the play speed he has, the aggressiveness of the ball in his hands. and the movement qualities he exhibits at a player his size are very rare. And he's a guy who really excites me from a human performance, sport performance standpoint. I'm a big nerd for human movement, and he's a guy who really excites me in that capacity. But for me, if you put the injuries aside, he's a top 15 player in this class, bar none. He wasn't used traditionally as a receiver. And like you said, I think that money's his development. He was moved around at tight end, running back. In the first 5 games of 2018, they tried to get him the ball in any way they possibly could. It was like, you go to a small high school and the best player gets the ball every single play. That's what it really reminded me of, right? They motioned him out using the wildcat quarterback. He was their primary goal line and short yardage option, and he was very good in that role. I put up his thread in the site is the free thread, and that's one of the links is him in short yardage, and he was extremely good as a short yardage option as a running back and then as wildcat quarterback. But I mean, for me, like I said, I mean, I think his development was might a little bit because he didn't play traditional receiver, and I think he's him and Antonio Gibson are probably one of the two players that you might be able to say are top 8 players at 2 positions. I think Gibson is extremely talented as well. I think Chenault could be in that 6-7 range at running back as well as receiver. I think Gibson's more of a running back than receiver. But I mean, for me, man, I think might be one of those prospects that blow up, or he does nothing because of the injuries. And I think 3 surgeries in the last 14 months is nothing to scoff at. Yeah. But I think at that point in your draft, I think you kind of have to take a shot at a guy who could be an all-pro caliber player. And I think that's what he could be in the right offense. And hopefully he falls to my Chicago Bears. If we pass him up, I'll be extremely upset.
He'd be a nice compliment to Allen Robinson. Tell you that
I think he would be.
Yeah.
Chenault dead. Anything else you want to add on him?
Yeah, he said it all right there. I mean, he had a good junior year. His last year, the offensive line hurt him. I think he only had 925 yards last year from scrimmage and 6 touchdowns, whereas a junior he had over 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns. There's a lot to like about him. Impressive size 6'2", 220 pounds. I mean, teams will like his versatility. His 4.58 combine speed should get him drafted.
Yeah. So that's going to do it for our receivers. We're going to have some sleepers about to say. Your guys, Justin Jefferson, Angelo's guys, Laviska Shenault, my guys, Jalen Reagor. All these prospects are very exciting. I can't wait to see where they land in the draft. So
it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. For sleepers, though, my guy, I've been waiting for all offseason, Lynn Bowden Jr. from Kentucky. Oh, this guy, he's something. What if I told you he's a player that can play quarterback, he can punt return, kick return, play wide receiver, and also run the ball? So Lynn Bowden played, I think it was 3 games at wide receiver. A lot of it was at quarterback. He's pretty good at the receiver, and he also led the SEC in rushing. I'll say that again real quick. He led the SEC in rushing. SEC with Clyde Edwards-Helaire and DeAndre Swift, and you had this guy who's playing quarterback and wide receiver for 3 games lead the entire conference in rushing. He used the definition of dynamic. Didn't run out the combine, unfortunately, so we didn't get a speed on him, but you can watch the film. He looks like he's pretty fast. I'd say I guess that's a fair analysis of this guy. So I love Lynn Bowden. Excited to see where he's going to land. He's probably going to have round 2 or round 3 capital, I'm hoping. I think teams are taking note of this guy, and they're going to want this playmaker kind of player to add to their roster. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him at the end of the 2nd round if a team really likes this guy. And I also love Antonio Gibson as well, but I think he's going to be a running back. So I'm on the Antonio Gibson train. Dad, who is your sleeper?
I like Tyler Johnson from Minnesota.
Oh, switching it up on me. Okay.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Well, there's a couple of guys that I like it. I had a couple of them written down, but we're going to go with him. I mean, 5 months ago, he was much more highly regarded than Mims or
I can't help you out here because I have no idea what you're talking about.
Ayuk? Ayuk. What'd I say? Akalu.
Ekaloo, baby. That's what we get in this podcast. You get my dad's mispronunciations. It's to die for. Here we go.
I mean, I think this guy is going to be a great NFL starter for years to come.
Really?
Wow.
The only problem I have with him is no Senior Bowl invite. didn't test at the combine, so we didn't get to see how fast he was.
That's why he's a sleeper.
Yeah, he's a
That's
sleeper. I
why
like
he's
it.
a
I'm
sleeper.
praying for Tyler Johnson to have draft capital. I don't want him to be like a Keem Butler or go in day
I
3.
don't
I
think
want to
so.
see him go in round 3. I think that'd be perfect. But if he goes in round 5, I'm
Yeah.
off the ship. And it sucks because I think he's very,
gonna
very
go
talented.
Third, fourth round. I think if
Yeah.
he goes later than that, it's gonna hurt him.
Yeah. So Angelo, who is your sleeper of the draft we didn't mention?
Man, I think my sleeper is a guy who shouldn't be a sleeper, and that's Brian Edwards.
There it is.
I have him pretty high. I mean, for me, he's in my tier 3 of players. But I don't know where he's been. I mean, for me, I don't know why people are so low on him. I get the injury, broke his foot, but if it wasn't for that, he'd be among the top 5 wideouts in this class. I mean, the talent is there, and like you said, I know you're a big analytics guy. I mean, he broke out at 17 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta be jumping out of your seat.
When I was 17, I think I was fat and I couldn't even run like a 7-second.
See, exactly, yeah.
It's bad. Yeah.
When I was 17, I wasn't playing against
SEC talent and breaking out in the SEC.
Right. But I mean, for me, man, I think he checks nearly every box as a receiver when I look at him. Good play speed, aggressive at the catch point, great size, willing blocker, and the only true question mark is injury. I believe he had a knee injury earlier in his career.
Yeah.
And now with the broken foot, I think that's the only factor that was to be like, maybe he's going to drop in drafts because of it. And I think he will, similar to Chenault. These are guys who have extremely, extremely good size, speed comparables, who are good football players. Yeah. They're great with the ball in their hands. And if anyone's a little on the fence on Brian Edwards, the one thing I'll tell you is watch the game against Alabama. Just watch him play at Alabama. It's like the first play of the game. And Destination Devy has a really, really cool All-22. Reggie Q and Jordan Richards, they do a great job over there. And they have a really cool All-22 of it. And the first play of the game, he gets like a jet sweep, basically. And he throws the Alabama defender out of bounds, drags 3 guys with him. And this is Alabama. This is not Appalachian State. Yeah. He's playing again. And he did it all game. Patrick Surtain was lined up against him too. And he did really well. I mean, he's a pretty complete 3-level threat. And I think he could play a role similar to that of Michael Thomas. When I think his biggest attribute as a player, Brian Edwards, that is he's extremely good at walling off the defender in the short to intermediate areas. Like if we're talking about, quick slants, quick outs, anything right along, like right on the line of scrimmage as well. I think he does a good job of walling off defenders. And I think he's going to be a guy that's going to be a big third down option for an offense. And he has the ability you can manufacture touches for him and he can do well. He has good play speed for a guy his size at 6'3", 215. But he's impressive, man. I like him a lot. I mean, I think he's going to drop in the NFL draft, probably mid-late second round. I could see him going. I could see him dropping to the mid-third round as well if there's a run on running backs, which is something that we're not going to talk about. But I think there's 5 running backs in this class that can be drafted, pick 50 or earlier. So, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we shall see. And I'll say this first: I'm an idiot. So I made this show sheet relatively quickly because I'm just listing out rookie wide receivers. I have Brian Edwards as my number 5 ranked wide receiver, and I don't include him on the show sheet here. So
no, that's okay.
It's a great sleeper call. Can you get the people one more? I think Brian Edwards, like you said, is going to be dynamic, but I'll give you another one.
Yeah, give me one more. Give me Isaiah Coulter from Rhode Island.
That's a deep one. There you go.
That's deep.
I just like his game, man. I think he's a fluid athlete. A little bit like Michael Pittman in that regard, man. I think we're looking at a guy who's just reliable. I think that's what he could be at the next level. I mean, that's pretty deep, right? So, yeah. We're talking about a guy who might be maybe a mid day 3, late day 3 pick here. But I liked your Tyler Johnson one. I would have stolen that from you. I think Tyler Johnson. He's going to be a good player in the NFL. I think people are sleeping on him because he didn't run at the combine, didn't get a Senior Bowl invite. There's questions about his speed, but I mean, the kid can play football. I mean, like, are we talking about Keenan Allen's 4.7 140 anymore?
Yeah.
No, he's a multiple-time 1,000-yard receiver. I mean, we forget those type of things when success happens. And I think Tyler Johnson is a extremely savvy player who has a chance to be a good NFL wide receiver. And Isaiah Coulter, when we're talking about him, obviously he didn't play against great competition, playing at Rhode Island. But I just like his game, man. And there's something about the kid I'm kind of drawn to. And he's a guy I'm kind of taking a stab on late in the draft. If you guys are looking, who are some of your early 2021 sleepers?
So I love sleeper Jamar Chase, obviously. And then I have Rashad Bateman. I'm not a big Devi guy. I'm starting to get into this year. The guy from Auburn, I'm going blank on his name. These are all top guys, but Rondale Moore, but he's really, really tiny. I have all the top guys. I don't really have a deep sleeper for you for a Devi yet because I'm not a big Devi guy. But those are top guys I kind of like. I'm trying to think. The Alabama receiver Smith is pretty interesting. I don't know where he's going to line up or go, but those are like my guys. You have a sleeper for us for Devi?
For me, I think not a receiver, but I think my biggest sleeper is probably Puka Williams Jr. He's a running back out of Kansas. I could talk your ear off about Puka. I think he's one of those guys, when you watch him play, you're just like, wow. Like that's incredible. And that's the type of vibe I get from him. Obviously, his size limitations, he's 5'10", 170, right? But I mean, he's, I think he was almost 1,000-yard rusher as a freshman, or he was 1,000-yard rusher as a freshman, right around it. But for me, I think, he's one of the best accelerators at the position, and he brings an element of toughness, kind of like Philip Lindsay does. He's got that chip on his shoulder for being a smaller player, and I just really like
watching for Lindsay.
It does. I mean, the kid, I love Philip Lindsay. But yeah, I mean, Puka's a guy. I mean, yeah, he had 1,000 yards as a freshman, had 1,000 yards this past year. I think he had like 13 combined touchdowns in those 2 seasons. But I mean, man, the kid just, if you want to have fun tonight and you're a football nerd like I am, go Google Puka Williams Jr. And he has some runs where you're like, there's no way this kid's 170 pounds. And you say it with Philip Lindsay all the time. And I mean, for me, I think Puka is one of those guys that could be a good pass catching option or a good change of pace option in the NFL. But he's one of my guys that, like, if you're sitting there and, if you have a league that's Devi and the draft is pretty deep and you're sitting there like, man, who do I take? I mean, I'm clicking my button on Puka Williams all day because I just think the kid's fun to watch, and the NFL offense could use him and his services for sure.
Awesome. Nice little deep find right there. I'm definitely going to be watching that after this show. See what I find about this guy. It's exciting. Well, thank you, Angelo, for coming on, and thanks for going over all these rookie wide receivers with us. It was a fun time, and hopefully people learn some things.
Oh, God, no. Thank you, guys. I appreciate the invite, man. Stay safe out there, and enjoy tomorrow.
Tomorrow's going to be exciting.
Tomorrow will be a fun one. And we'll have Angelo's website and Twitter linked in the description below on the podcast, so check that out and go over there and follow him on Twitter. And, yeah, we'll see you guys next time.
See you.
Awesome.
Enough. Let me play this real quick so I don't got to edit it. Where is it? All right. Thanks for everyone who stayed on YouTube. We'll be live tomorrow for a draft, so check us out. And, yeah, we'll end this broadcast here.